The judge overseeing Donald Trump's New York civil fraud trial will not allow the former president to deliver his own closing argument Thursday. Judge Arthur Engoron was initially going to let Trump speak if he agreed to certain conditions, but he denied the request Wednesday because he and Trump's lawyers couldn't reach an agreement. Judge Engoron has already found the Trump organization liable for fraud. He hasn't ruled on 6 other claims in the New York Attorney General's lawsuit. So let's bring in CBS News campaign reporter and attorney Katrina Kaufman. Katrina, good to see you.
Yeah, wonderful to be here.
So there was a deadline was set, right? The response, and the Trump team didn't respond about whether or not, because they said, the judge said he had to agree to certain conditions.
Exactly. I mean, what's interesting is the judge seemed really receptive to this. Basically, he realized that it was at his discretion whether Trump could partake in the closing arguments. And he said that Trump actually has the most at stake in this trial, and he wants as much information as possible in making his decisions. So he would let him speak, but Trump couldn't testify. He couldn't make it a campaign speech. He had to stick to relevant facts. I mean, really, closing arguments are about legal theories. Yeah. So he was very willing to, on those terms, let Trump partake. And his team just could not agree.
He seemed receptive to it, even though defendants normally don't make their own closing arguments.
Unless you're defending yourself, it's highly, highly unusual to make this kind of request. And also, I want to note that Trump had an opportunity to testify again for the defense, decided the day before that he had nothing more to say at this trial, and canceled it at the very last minute. But now he decided he, wanted to be part of the closing arguments, which would never normally happen.
Mm-hmm. The closing arguments are still made. They're just being made by his attorneys now.
Yeah, they're still being made by his attorneys, exactly, as planned.
Okay, so what do we expect next as far as this legal case goes or others?
Sure. I mean, for this legal case, we're waiting for what's called the disgorgement. So the judge is going to decide what the ill-gotten gains are for Trump, for the state. The state wants $370 million, and for Trump to have a lifetime ban on participating in real estate in New York, and also a ban for his sons as well. So this is really high stakes for Trump. It's a very high bar, and tomorrow each side will give their closing arguments, and then in a few weeks probably we'll get a ruling from the judge on this.
I don't mean to oversimplify the case, but I just say other cases. There's so many other cases.
I know, in my head I thought there's so many more.
Yeah, I didn't mean for your head to explode, but what else is next on the horizon?
Next week we have the E. Jean Carroll trial. So that, again, is for damages. For Trump defaming E. Jean Carroll. And he has said he was going to testify at that trial. But very similarly, the judge there has also said he has to stick to only relevant information, and that, he can't criticize E. Jean Carroll. There are a lot of terms. So now I think it's maybe a little bit in question whether Trump will, in fact, testify. But he said that he was going to attend the trial then as well.
What does his representation look like these days, given so many different legal cases?
I mean, he has a lot of legal teams, obviously. I think one interesting thing, and I'm about to publish a story about this with a couple colleagues, is that his legal strategy and his political strategy are really colliding. Mm-hmm. Iowa's next week. Trump is spending this week much of it in court, instead of campaigning in Iowa. And then he's framing it to his followers as though he's being forced to be there. This is absolutely not true. Trump did not have to go to his D.C. appeals court hearing yesterday. Trump does not have to go to his closing arguments in New York tomorrow, but he's really turning these into campaign stops. Mm-hmm. So I think there's just a very interesting intersection of the legal and political here.
How many of these cases or appearances does he actually have to be at?
For the criminal cases, he does have to be there, and then obviously when he's called to testify. But otherwise, it's completely voluntary.
And what's your timeline on when you think, if the election interference case goes to the Supreme Court, when do you think, quickly, when do you think that might happen, or how soon we'd find out about that?
I've talked to a lot of legal experts about this, and there's just so many different variables. But, the date right now is March 4th. I think that's highly in jeopardy. I'm hearing maybe July, maybe August. It's hard to say exactly because there could be various types of appeals depending on the decision that's made in the appeals court. But I'd say March is looking really unlikely.
Your head may be spinning as well as many other people's, but you do a nice job breaking it down, so we appreciate it.
Thank you.